Hi, I'm Carolina Dolan-Chandler, Chief Digital Officer from Globant, and this is Anish from LinkedIn joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Anish, tell us a little bit about you first so that we understand what we're going to talk about.
I have had what we call a squiggly line career that's gone a little bit all over the place. I started as a war correspondent with CNN in Asia and the Middle East, and then I left CNN to join the then presidential campaign of Barack Obama before he won.
Wow.
So it was the
That was a while
riskiest
ago.
thing I'd ever done. After he won, I became a speechwriter at the Treasury Department during a financial crisis, and then at the Pentagon, and then became a speechwriter for President Obama. And left the White House really believing that technology was a tool humans had never had before to do big, great things. And so I went to a couple of startups, then to Facebook, and then the California governor before LinkedIn. So it makes no sense, except it's interesting by titles. But the reason I am such a big believer in skills is the way that we all think about work, is that then it gets really simple when I tell you my whole career has been explanatory storytelling. Midway through, I built a skill set around coalition building, business development, or policy advocacy. And it's all attached to the issue of economic opportunity. And so then it suddenly makes sense.
So I've had a very squiggly career myself. Like I went from technology to product development to sales, then marketing, then back to technology. So I've been all over the place. Half of the people think it doesn't make sense. And it's one of the things that we tell people in our company, like your career should be completely random. And you should go wherever you go. But there are some things that are key to being able to do that, right?
Well, I think you got to anchor on what you're trying to drive towards. President Obama used to give this career advice. Don't worry about who you're going to be, worry about what you're going to do. And when you think about what you're going to do, there are some skills you want to keep honing. There are some areas of expertise you want to build out so that you can have the impact that you want to have. And so I think we're going to see more and more of a shift, especially as organizations flatten, as the lines between functions blur with AI, more and more of a shift where we're not worried about what job title do you want at what type of company, and that's what you're working for. You want your boss's job or your boss's job. It's more, what are your unique skills that you have and that you are excited to hone? So you're constantly learning around those skills. What's the area of expertise? So for me, it's economic opportunity. It could be healthcare. It could be a sector. Or a type of technology. And then as you get further into your career, what's the impact you want to have? What's the sort of legacy you want to leave? And I think that's going to be a totally different way for people to think about careers.
So how does technology help in all of this?
I think, so if we take AI and just what's coming, because I think that's the big force that's going to push all of us to be more smart about how we're building careers. So our data at LinkedIn, under the app, we have an economic graph, 1 billion members, 200 countries. It's a view of the labor market that's never existed, real-time, granular. We can see trends before they're big. We can see differences across function sectors. We are entering a new era for our economy. When that happens, disruption comes first, and we're seeing that. But for most people, in these moments where technology has pushed the economy to a new era, jobs change, and then new categories of jobs emerge. We just did a jobs on the rise list. 2/3 of those jobs did not exist 20 years ago.
That is fantastic.
MIT has a study that 60% of employment in 2018 did not exist in 1940. So first of all, if you're thinking about your career and technology's impact, you don't even know what you don't know about what's about to happen 5, 10, 20 years from now in terms of the categories of jobs that are going to emerge. The signal that I'm watching, and this will be perhaps really surprising, we looked across all industries and we looked across a bunch of jobs to see what skills can AI do and what skills are humans doing at work. 96% of a software engineer's job is vulnerable to AI, largely proficiency in coding languages.
Right.
So that doesn't mean engineers are going to go away, but it does mean they're going to collaborate more. They're going to need to communicate more. Communication is the #1 skill on LinkedIn across all jobs. So to me, the massive shift we're going to see in this new economy is we had a goods economy that was agriculture and manufacturing for tens of thousands of years. Then we had this knowledge economy for a few decades about intellectual acumen. I think we're going into a relationship economy where social abilities and emotional intelligence are going to come more to the core. And the core reason for that is what differentiates us from AI. That is what differentiates us from technology. AI can mimic emotional intelligence, but two humans coming together to collaborate and innovate and create, that's always what has led us as a species to stay advanced.
You know, it's very interesting. As I'm hearing you talk about this is not prepared question, by the way. It's been very unique over the past several years how you see kids and younger generations sometimes be a little bit more isolated, being more in gaming, being more in their own world, and maybe not being so social. So what do we need to do to counteract that? Because if we're going into a relationship economy, but our baseline is not there, just like today, we don't have enough women in tech, but we know we solve that by training a lot more women. Like, you need to solve the baseline first. How do we prepare the baseline?
So as we move into the relationship economy, we have to fundamentally rethink every system around economic opportunity, how we teach and train students, how we hire and promote employees, how we invest in and scale businesses. So let's start with that point you made about kids. For a century plus, we have been very prejudiced against emotions. We've often said, don't let emotions get in the way.
Oh, yeah.
Then what we did was we built an entire system around IQ of humans. That's how we teach, that's how we train, that's how we credential, degrees, all of it, tests. And it all was a virtuous cycle towards the IT jobs in computer science, because those were the highest paying jobs. What you needed was technical skills around coding. And we got so dismissive of our emotional intelligence. We have to dramatically shift that now. So even on college campuses, the humanities became forgotten. Philosophy was like forgotten while everyone invested in the sciences. And there's going to have to be a rebalancing there. I think for parents, one of the great things is where we've seen the greatest work on how do you teach and train EQ is social emotional learning, that in the US has become really prevalent in early childhood education. How do you give your kids emotional toolkits?
Yeah.
So that's where we start. But then when you think about what you just said on gender, someone asked me if the relationship economy were here tomorrow, what would be the biggest signal to me that it had arrived? And to me, it's we would have more women in senior leadership positions. I have to like mansplain, I know gender equity to all the women out there.
That to me.
But if you think about an economy that is going to value skills that we know women have and have been undervalued for, and that's going to become more core to leadership. It's going to become more core to leading organizations where you have to build collaboration around critical thinking, critical listening. I think that's going to be one of the things that we'll need to watch, but we'll need to build for in the relationship economy.
But at the same time, we're going to need to keep an eye for balancing, because if we go all towards, we never want an extreme, right?
Yes.
So if everything naturally gears towards women, then we need to see how do we amplify maybe certain skills on men. I'm going to change gears a little bit. So we have believed in reskilling, upskilling, in this learning to learn kind of thing, right? And we use a lot of technology around it. Like, we have our university where we have more than 4,000 courses for people to take. We have AI engines behind them that allow people to kind of piggyback on what people are doing. But we also have AI as the tool that people are using to learn. To learn itself. So what's your take on how technology can help on that angle?
That is probably what I'm most excited about, because, you know, I spend my time part economic anthropologist thinking about the history of work, part economic futurist looking ahead. But it's really hard to look ahead because AI's capabilities are just so unprecedented. So I can't say with certainty really anything about what's coming except one thing that I really believe I can say with certainty, which is that this is the era of the learn-it-alls. That the one thing we can all do as an individual and as an organization that will prepare everyone to adapt and have agility with all the changes that we don't know are coming is the ability to learn, unlearn, relearn, learn anew. That's going to be everything. Now, how we do that, I think, is also going to be an effort, because learning has had some baggage in human history. It's seen as something most people want to be done with when they graduate. It hasn't been, when you think about employers needing to be educators, learning hasn't been attached to career growth, especially at the company. That's got to change. But what'll be exciting is if employers realize they are now educators, you have to bring your workforce with you. You can't just trust that business cycles will be slow and predictable like they've been. You can't fire and hire and just go back and forth. You've got to bring your workforce with you. If you believe that people, the human part of work, is about to become the most important part of your organization, then you've got to figure out how to educate your workforce to keep them aligned with where you're trying to drive your business. So you've got to attach it to career growth that's attached to organizational growth. But what's exciting to me is the more research we have on learning, the more we know that the old theory of learning is wrong, that everyone has some innate potential and learning has to tap it. Actually, our brain can constantly reach new levels of potential, even new levels of mastery at any age, with deliberate practice, with deliberate intent, and then with AI, with personalized learning that really caters to who we are at what stage we're at.
our CEO used to talk about this precise thing like 12 years ago or something, and people thought that he was crazy, that it was not, it was innate. And he really believed in that and pushed that way. I think one final question, two more. Actually, I'm going to do two more. One is, not so long ago, I went to the Van Gogh exhibit, the immersive one. I had gone in San Francisco, I went in Miami, and I found the last exhibit had a VR helmet where you actually went and it took you through the Van Gogh paintings coming alive, and you could actually navigate through them, right? And I always see, I'm kind of expectant to the time where we can walk through ancient Roman times, How do you feel about that?
So I think that we're about to have this like amazing moment of human experience, because I do think AI is going to decrease the barrier of entrepreneurship. So more people from more backgrounds who have domain expertise in all these areas like climate or healthcare are going to have access to technology and build technology. I think we are going to have to be more human at work and get to know each other better and develop a baseline of understanding of humanity that exists across things. It's going to decrease barriers of culture. It's going to decrease barriers of language. So I think that we are going to anchor anew as a species around what it is to be human. And I think as part of that, we are going to get to think about the human experience across all the ages that have come before. I have been, as I've done a lot of thinking about who we are in this change, reading a lot of philosophy.
Ooh.
And there is this amazing ability to time travel with philosophy, to go to Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, as he wrote Meditations. And here's a human who, this is so long ago, but was thinking about the same things we're thinking about now. When you think about ancient civilizations, a lot of the day-to-day was the same things we worry about now. How to have joy, how to build family and community. And so my hope is that in as much as AI is a story of technological capability, it's going to unleash an era of greater humanity and actually technology moving to the background more than now, where it's a phone and it's a computer and it's this present distraction, and allowing us to be more present with each other and more connected to humans of past.
Yeah, we feel like technology is going to go to absolute ways, like completely transparent or completely immersive, and both will coexist, but you will have a very moment going to each of them. Final question. Is there anything that makes you feel like we should watch out for this? Like I just said, okay, let's make sure that we don't go overboard to women, that we still keep a balance. Is there anything that with everything you've learned, you're like...
I think with AI, it's obviously important that we have cross-sector dialogue, that the intent is right. But I start from the status quo is already broken. The labor market has never done a good job of like matching talent and opportunity. It hasn't been transparent. It hasn't been efficient. It hasn't been equitable. So I'm not as worried about, is AI going to make things worse when they're pretty bad? The thing that I would say we have to watch out for is our own brain. And I say it for this reason. The human brain has evolved over millions of years. The world around us has changed just in a couple of hundred, to the degree to which it's now unrecognizable to when our brain was formed to think the way it thinks. So our brain is wired, and behavioral scientists will prove this, towards fear and anxiety. It is wired towards protecting us from immediate danger. From back when there was constant immediate danger, every day as a human was a survival question. So a lot of what I'm trying to push us as a species to do is, instead of saying what's left for humans in the age of AI, let's say what's possible. And you change that one word and you start to change the wiring of your brain, what you pay attention to, the stories you tell, the things that you think are possible at work for yourself and others. And so I do think it's like, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I think the biggest watch out is ourselves and this diminished view we have of human capability, because work has really shrunk who we think we are. For most of work, for most people, you were farming, then you were manufacturing. Then a lot of us, you're sending emails and you're doing these things AI is going to do. And then we're like, well, what's left? There's this whole arena of what's left of human capability that we just have not let ourselves realize sometimes. So I think that's what I fear most, because if we don't start from what's possible, then we are letting AI happen to us. But we are humans. We built the nation state and the monetary order. We came up with gravity. We have conscience-based pushes like equity and sustainability. Those are based on moral, ethical frameworks of being. AI doesn't have any of that. And so if we don't start from what's possible, we don't recognize the fullness of who we are as humans.
That is fantastic. Well, I think that's about for today. I loved having this conversation with you. I think it's really interesting topic, and that's about it.
Thank you.